Greetings, wrestling fans and newbies alike. Welcome to our wrestling show. Normally, we're reviewing and recapping the Monday Night Wars. We watch WCW Monday Nitro and WWF Monday Night Raw, and we let them go head-to-head and see who came out on top for that particular week. But we're also looking at all the events in between. And this week, we are reviewing the WCW Fall Brawl War Games 1995 pay-per-view.
We are in Asheville, North Carolina tonight, and our announcers are Tony Schiavone and Bobby Heenan.
The show opens up with a video package recapping the storylines from the last few months. We see things about the Dungeon of Doom, the return of Lex Luger from behind enemy lines, as well as the feud between Ric Flair and Arn Anderson. This event took place on Sunday, September 17th, 1995, and the main event is the War Games, the Match Beyond. Now, War Games is an event that has roots in the NWA. There's a long, complicated list of rules, but essentially it's two teams of 4 or 5 men each, and they go into a steel cage that is surrounding 2 rings placed side by side. It's a free-for-all brawl type match, no holds barred. The only way you can win is through surrender or submission. To kick off the night, we've got Flying Brian Pillman versus Johnny B. Bad. The winner of this match gets a shot at the United States Heavyweight title, which is currently held by Sting. So this is a match where they establish that Brian and Johnny are close friends. And I can't believe how much people go gaga for getting shot with the confetti cannon, but then they show it, and it just kind of like sprinkles the first few audiences with some large pieces of confetti, and it seems very anticlimactic after the whole like crazy build-up.
I didn't really see the appeal of him until this match, actually. I thought, he's a pretty beautiful man, and he reminds me a lot of Freddie Mercury. So maybe that's some of the appeal at the time.
I could see that. Johnny B. Bad is essentially a beefed-up Little Richard lookalike. Rest in peace. And he will eventually leave WCW to become Mark Mero, which is his real name, in the WWF alongside his wife, Sable. So, get ready for that.
Interesting that they are more in favor of Johnny B. Bad here.
I think it's also interesting to note that the crowd doesn't really seem to like Pillman at all. He gets some boos and...
Oh yeah, they booed him at his entrance.
I don't normally see people just get booed like that, but whatever.
Whatever.
This is a very slow-paced match to start, but they are telling a story because each man is kind of hesitant to go full-on against the other because, as we are told repeatedly, they are close friends and they're trying to not just take the boots to each other too quickly. They want to really have a measured, careful, respectful match. And they take that respect to the fullest extent, and while the match is set for a 20-minute time limit, we do exceed that time limit.
It goes into sudden death.
Yes, sudden death overtime, as commanded by the WCW Board of Directors. You can even hear them go, Michael Buffer says, Board of Directors? And it's like... But they need a winner because someone has to face Sting for the belt. And Bobby Heenan says, I've never heard of that. What is that?
So how long do they have? They have sudden death.
Essentially, sudden death means the match goes until someone loses, which is...
Not really any different than a typical match.
Yeah, it could have just been like, okay, put 10 more minutes on the clock, we're going to extend the match, because that happens. There's been plenty of matches where they go over, they go, no, we need a winner, we are going to allow the match to continue. The whole sudden death angle was really goofy to me.
Yeah, and I thought it was pretty interesting that they had such a long match for the first one to open the show.
Yeah, so there's actually several untelevised matches before this at the event. So imagine being there for 3 or 4 matches already before the matches you really came to see. And then you get a 30-minute, it's actually, I think, 29 minutes and 14 seconds overall, match between Flying Brian and Johnny B. Bad. It's kind of a slow start when you got so much other stuff you're looking forward to throughout the night.
People have to be there for, what, like at least 6 hours?
Yeah, all said and done, I'd say yeah. I mean, you definitely make a day of it. I mean, it's a 3-hour televised event, so.
Yeah, when you take into the account waiting in line, even getting there, like it's definitely an all-day event.
Getting some snacks. There were a few spots I want to highlight in this match. There are several times that they both go for a drop kick at the same time, and I thought it was funny that they kept repeating that spot. This felt like a classic old school WCW match to me. A lot of the matches in the early 90s and late 80s, they just felt slower paced, a lot of holds, a lot of kind of technical stuff that I think kind of went out of fashion with a lot of people, and also didn't seem to really ever be super in fashion for the WWF. So, I mean, this felt like I was watching old school WCW, and like I was watching it for a really long time. I don't know if like the match held my interest for the full 30 minutes. There were some great reversals, some great back and forth. I don't know, what do you think?
I thought it was a really good pairing. It's obvious that they have worked together and know each other and are friends, and maybe they play off that when they are doing the kick back and forth. That's maybe a little inside joke, but yeah, it was hard to hold my attention because I knew what the rest of the night was going to hold, and I thought, okay, I am ready for the next thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, decent match, good storytelling, maybe just a little too long, and also sudden death did not live up to the hype.
Yeah.
After a series of false finishes, Johnny B. Bad eventually does take the win. After the match, we go backstage with Ric Flair and Mean Gene. They hype up the Arn Anderson-Ric Flair feud a little bit more and get us ready for their match that will take place later in the night. Transitioning from the longest fucking match I've ever seen to one of the shortest matches I've ever seen, we have Cobra versus Craig Pitbull Pittman. This was really something.
Yeah, it was definitely short and sweet compared to the last match, and he made quite an entrance.
Yes, so a little backstory. Cobra debuted in WCW on September 9th, 1995. His backstory is that he was a Marine in the Gulf War serving under Pittman, and Pittman abandoned Cobra in the desert and reported him AWOL. Cobra lost all his rank and everything. He had to learn how to wrestle and come to WCW to seek revenge on Pittman. That is an insane backstory.
Let's get you back to the ring.
Ladies and gentlemen, the following contest.
Cobra had a very confusing entrance. He comes out to just the sound of Morse code.
Yeah, it was really confusing. I felt kind of silly when I was watching it, but I had no idea what it was. I thought maybe it was something on the computer.
Yeah.
And
Well, they're talking, and then the Morse code starts. And honestly, I didn't see the WCW Saturday Night where he debuted. So maybe that's always been his entrance music, but the Morse code's really loud, and I expected it to be like a message in Morse code. But it went on for like 30 seconds, and I had no idea what was going on. It was very strange.
yeah.
Regardless, Cobra makes his way to the ring, and a soldier of some sort comes out to deliver a message to Cobra, and Cobra is saying, "You tell Pittman to get his ass in here, or I'm gonna beat him in this wrestling match." All the while, Craig Pittman is rappelling from the ceiling very slowly, lands in the furthest ring, Solid Snake crawls under the ropes behind Pittman, and rises to choke him with a bandana, I think?
Or cloth or something, yeah.
Yeah, he chokes him with something. The match starts. Pittman is overselling his character like crazy. He keeps like lunging with like both arms out and making big crazy eyes to the camera. Basically the match lasts just over a minute. Cobra gets his ass kicked and gets locked into a submission hold and gives up almost immediately as soon as the hold's placed. It seems like they just wanted to have a guy drop from the ceiling. Pittman continues to kind of oversell after the match as well, and looks at the camera and says this.
Guerrilla warfare.
That's another good day.
If you can figure out what he said, we'd love to know. We could not figure it out.
Yeah, could not decipher that one entirely. After that match, we head backstage for a video package with Paul Orndorff, Mr. Wonderful. He's having some sort of identity crisis. He's feeling like he's not Mr. Wonderful anymore. And they show a montage of him freaking out. What did you think of his acting here during his tantrum?
I can't believe this. Can't believe it.
I thought it was really hilarious, and it was weird to see him in that kind of light. Like, I've only seen him in the ring so far. I haven't seen him do a promo or any sort of skit, so it was just really funny.
Yeah, so he's like, oh, maybe I'm not Mr. Wonderful. I don't know what's going on. And then, very unexpected, Gary Spivey walks into the room, and he says,
Gary Spivey?
Mr. Wonderful, they let me back here to see you.
Gary Spivey of the Psychic Companions Network?
a lot of you might know Gary Spivey from this image here that is, a meme, I would say. I've seen this posted a lot online. Spivey is a real person. No, that's not his real hair. But he just gives Paul a motivational message, and Paul realizes that he truly is Mr. Wonderful.
I see Mr. Wonderful.
There you are. You see what I see.
And that's that. That's the end of the piece. There's not much more to it. I mean, Gary kind of even just repeats his lines a few times, it seems like, or just repeats the same message.
Yeah.
I enjoyed this. Did you like this bit?
I did.
But it's absurd.
It's very absurd.
Really weird. It's one of those things that when people look back at the War Games, I don't think they're talking about the Gary Spivey cameo, but really special part of the show.
Yeah. In the next match, we have Diamond Dallas Page, also known as DDP, accompanied by Max Muscle and Kimberly, versus the Renegade, who is accompanied by Jimmy Hart.
For people who aren't familiar, the Renegade was a character portrayed by Richard Wilson. He debuted in WCW in 1995 after Hogan teased a ultimate surprise. The Renegade is just a bootleg version of the Ultimate Warrior. He dresses like the Warrior, he runs into the ring and shakes the ropes and does all the Warrior bits, but he is definitely not the Ultimate Warrior. And this is a very upsetting story, but 4 years after this, he takes his own life with a gunshot to the head. His contract runs out, he doesn't have any other work prospects, and he commits suicide. It's a fucked up story.
I kind of wonder if it's related to any head injuries that he may have sustained, because that has come to light in the last decade.
Yeah, I honestly don't know enough about him or his story, but whenever I see that sort of mental illness, depression, violence issues in wrestlers, that is my first thought is, have they had some sort of injury that's, affecting their judgment? That's a darker part of the sport. That said, the network has archived a lot of his matches, one of them being this match against Diamond Dallas Page. Renegade is currently holding the World Television title, and DDP is the challenger. And I'm saying DDP, but he's Diamond Dallas Page at this point. I feel like the DDP thing didn't really become as common until he kind of transformed out of this character and became more of the good guy. He is a seething asshole in this match.
Yeah, he comes out with his girlfriend Kimberly, who seems to be referencing Vanna White. She's holding up scorecards for him, but she's clearly getting pretty pissed off at whatever he's doing.
Yeah, she's like a ring girl, sort of. Like when he completes a move, he kind of gives her the cue to like hold up the rating. And Max Muscle is kind of like the Diamond Stud replacement. Back in the day, before Scott Hall became Razor Ramon, he was in WCW as Diamond Dallas Page's understudy, the Diamond Stud. And Max Muscle is kind of at ringside, just being the bro, as Kimberly is not Kimberly yet. She's the Diamond Doll. She will eventually shed the Diamond Doll persona and become Kimberly, leader of the Nitro Girls, but that's not for a little while. Throughout the match, they really hammer in the fact that he's rich and that he's an asshole, but they really, really, really want you to know that he's rich.
Yeah, Bobby Heenan says, want to know how to become rich? Watch what poor people do and don't do it.
It's good advice. I think Paige looks ridiculous in this pink outfit. It just looks so corny to me. What do you think of that?
I think it's refreshing to see a man who's not half naked at this point, but I did note that the little diamond patches on the back in front of his tank top or pants, jumpsuit, whatever, the back kind of looked like a cat butthole and the front just looked like a little like floating kind of bikini spot.
Yeah, it's a really gaudy, poorly designed outfit. I feel like eventually it does simplify a little bit more, and I think he starts to favor like a baby blue over the pink. But it'll be a while before he's doing the classic like t-shirt and jeans kind of look that he has during his face run. Honestly, this is not an incredible match. It's not one of Paige's best matches, and it's not really one of the Renegade's best matches either. DDP eventually does hit the Diamond Cutter and wins the belt from Renegade. Moving on, we had a match that I was pretty excited for initially. It's the Harlem Heat, accompanied by Sister Sherry Martel, and Bunkhouse Buck and Dirty Dick Slater, accompanied to the ring by their manager, Colonel Parker. I've seen some great bits from Parker in the past. I really enjoyed when Stone Cold dressed up as Colonel Parker, and
That's one of my favorite.
that's a really hilarious piece.
Oh, I beg to differ with you, sir. I've obtained my wrestler's license, and I'm out here, the United States champion, to second a big tall man.
Right now, the story is Sherry at some point in the past had a head injury, and in a bout of amnesia, fell in love with Colonel Parker. And they've had this kind of on again, off again, will they, won't they kind of romance. And it's especially difficult because they're both managing rival tag teams. So, well, this is a match for the tag team titles that Buck and Dick currently hold. There's also the sort of budding romance between Sherry and Colonel Parker that we have to look out for. What a story.
It's a lot to take in.
Harlem Heat is one of the best tag teams ever, in my opinion. I don't know how much you've been able to see of them in action or of Booker T in action, because he doesn't go solo for a few more years, but growing up, Harlem Heat and Booker T were really in my top picks for, for WCW guys at the time, and then seeing Booker really ascend the ranks in WWF as well was really exciting. This match was kind of boring for me.
I think it was the most fun match up to that point.
That's true. It was the best match of the night thus far. But it felt like it was a lot of just lumbering brawling. A lot of, big man hit the other big man.
Yeah.
Very slow paced. It wasn't the kind of exciting tag action I expect from the Harlem Heat.
I don't really like Bunkhouse Buck either. That character is it's kind of the southern version of the Brooklyn Brawler, and his outfit doesn't match the character. He's too clean, I thought.
Yeah, I really am not into either of the characters. I mean, they're basically just two scummy southern guys is the whole gimmick.
Yeah. Or at least Harlem Heat has a little more to their look.
So the match goes on for a while. At some point, everyone's bored with the action, so we go to the other ring where Sherry and Colonel Parker are making out. It's a big, big sloppy makeout.
Yeah, she kind of crawls into the ring and they slowly meet each other in the middle, and it kind of looks like she's, ooh, I'm gonna sex you up, and then they smooch, and everybody's distracted by that.
They're so distracted, in fact, that the Nasty Boys come out to the ring, knock out Dick Slater with a boot, and allow Harlem Heat to take the pin and the belts. Everyone's going wild because we got the new tag team champs, but also all this hot makeout action. Colonel Parker's just covered in lipstick, and they're just like the big open mouth sucking for a long time.
But it's a little awkward too, because I don't know, there's kind of some resistance you can see where they're just like,
oh yeah. And if that weren't enough, they replay the clip from different angles so many times, and when they are about to be done playing the clip, they go to one more angle with a nice big clean upskirt of Sherry. You get to see those butt cheeks. And Sherry is one of the first female wrestlers to do one of those ass shots. Back in the WWF days, it was kind of seen as very risque at the time. So fucking stupid. Again, it just seemed like we want to show Sherry's butt. How about we just lift her skirt and they start making out? Okay, that sounds good. Cool. So we got the guy coming out of the ceiling and we got like a butt. This is going to be a great show. All this is going on. Everyone's going crazy. Colonel Parker is being interviewed by Mean Gene out on the entrance ramp. And at some point they go back and Dick Slater's still knocked out in the middle of the ring, which I really, really liked. But even as they're talking, the clip of the kiss is still playing on the big screens in the back. So essentially, Buck and Dick are pissed at Colonel Parker. Colonel Parker's saying, hey, I'm in love with this girl, and I'll get you another shot at the belts, don't worry. And even Harlem Heat is kind of pissed at Sherry for making out with Colonel Parker.
It seems like everybody is mad at the situation. And when Colonel Parker goes to talk to Mean Gene, even Mean Gene is giving him some sass about it.
Yeah, it's like really forbidden love. And it's also really great to see Gene start to kind of break character.
Yeah.
He's like, I love seeing Gene crack up, and this is a really good moment for him. He's handling it as best he can, but the absurdity is definitely getting to him. Before moving on to the next match, we have a quick promo for Halloween Havoc, the next pay-per-view from WCW that's coming up. And I just want to mention that the graphics are really bonkers on this. I really like this. It was just a quick commercial, but I really enjoyed the look of this. We move on from that to the match you never thought you'd see, Ric Flair versus Arn Anderson. And before we go to the ring, there's a really long, really in-depth video package detailing all the ups and downs of both Ric Flair and Arn Anderson's time in WCW together. It shows the strain that all this is having. The entrance of Hulk Hogan seems to have been pushing Flair to the brink of insanity. And it's stressing him out, it's stressing his family out. They show those really great shots of when Ric Flair was having that retirement match against Vader, I believe. And Ric Flair's saying goodbye to his family for the last time. They show all that stuff, and it's really good. There's some great clips of Arn freaking out.
Don't talk shit about Total!
And basically, it's just giving you all the hype you'd need to get pumped for this match between longtime friends Arn Anderson and Ric Flair. As we go ringside, we see Colonel Parker, Bubba Rogers, Eddie Guerrero, Marcus Bagwell, Brian Pillman, and some others in the crowd. People are excited to see this match. These are two certified legends going at it in a match you never thought you'd see, which is a phrase they use like 100 times throughout the night.
I also want to note how it's funny to see Big Bubba in the background, because I think that Arn Anderson kind of looks like Big Bubba's dad, or could be.
I could see that, yeah. Eddie Guerrero and some of those other wrestlers that are in the crowd were actually featured on those non-televised matches that came at the start of the pay-per-view event. And it's pretty cool to see Eddie there. Just previously before this, he was doing a lot of work in ECW. And I don't think he's made the full transition to be a full-time player on WCW television. But it's really cool to see young Eddie Guerrero in the crowd there. So I'm excited to see more of his work in WCW coming up very soon. Now, we're not going to really be assigning points to this show like we do on our regular Monday Night Raw, Monday Nitro reviews, but I do want to mention two signs. One is the Flair 316 sign, which I thought was really sweet. Now, the John 316 sign or blank 316 is something that you'd seen in sports before Austin 316 caught on like wildfire, but it was still pretty interesting to see that sign prominently featured in a shot way before the Austin 316 thing. And also the, if God were a wrestler, his name would be Ric Flair. What did you think of that sign?
I thought they were both great signs, and if we were assigning points, then the God one would definitely get the point for the night.
Yeah. Really enjoy the use of letter B instead of the full word B, because I'm assuming they ran out of room. Also want to note, before we go to the match, the bell makes a really fucking weird sound right here.
The American males won their match. Colonel Parker's come out to watch this one.
There's some great reaction shots from the crowd, and also this person does a really weird, really long, really loud scream that I just had to mention. Do you remember that?
Yeah. It was like a full 5 seconds.
It was very odd.
And it was so loud.
Close together. And they're very close right now. Inches apart, as a matter of fact. And they're going at it. Flair.
You could just hear it over everything. I can't imagine what it would be like to be next to that person.
Oh, horrible, probably. This is the highlight of the entire show for me. What did you think of this match?
There was so much build up to this match, I can't believe that it wasn't the main event.
Yeah, if it weren't a themed pay-per-view, sort of, it definitely probably would have been the main event. That's something I've seen in other shows where there's a special gimmick match as the main event, that often the match right before it is like the one, and then, well, you got to make like the Royal Rumble or the War Games. That's got to be the last match. But great wrestling from both these guys. You could tell that they're both just masters at what they do. It was hard to define really what made it so good, but it's just really good wrestling. I would say that if you're someone who's not totally familiar with wrestling or what you like, what you don't like, I would really say give this match a viewing. It is really, really, really strong work from both men.
This is definitely the best match of the night for me. Ric Flair is about 46 years old here, and Arn Anderson is about 37, so he's about a decade younger than Ric Flair. Ric Flair is doing great. Like, he is getting a lot of air on Arn. He was outside of the ring at one point. It's amazing to watch him, just be that active and take on that much at that age.
Yeah, Arn tossed him off the top rope at one point, and just like, Flair is kind of known for the big reactions to moves, but I mean, he goes so high, getting launched off that top rope, and yeah, he has several moves like that where it's like wild how high he goes, the tumbles he takes, and how quick he is with the whole thing. He doesn't look his age.
Yeah. And I find that it's easy to forget how big these men are when you're watching it, because when they're in the ring, and they're, similar heights, it's easy to think of them as maybe your own size.
Mm-hmm.
Not realizing a person that big, when they take a tumble like that, it's just all the more painful, really.
Totally, yeah. At one point, it looks like Ric Flair is going to take it. He gets the figure 4 leg lock on Arn, but Arn does reverse it, which was very unexpected. You get a lot of kind of moments in this match. You think one guy's going to take it, and then they're able to reverse it, and I was really looking forward to a clean victory in this match, but that is not the case.
At this point, Flying Brian comes up to the side of the ring from the crowd and gets a sucker punch in on Ric Flair while the ref is distracted. Ric Flair gets a shot at him back, but then Flying Brian gives him a kick to the head which knocks him down, allowing Arn to get the pin on Ric Flair.
I was really bummed out by that. I was also surprised that Rick wasn't bleeding sooner, because it's kind of like one of his things. He's usually ready to show some color. At some point after the match, they show where he got kicked in the side of the head by Brian. There's like a just a line of blood right there. So it's like pretty brutal to think about him getting kicked in the head so hard that he bleeds.
Yeah.
But there's a nice shot of a guy in the audience who, seeing this bullshit win, is like, you know, I it's not the finish I would have wanted. It was a great match, but I get bummed out when I see these bullshit distraction interference finishes. Maybe neither guy wanted to go down to the other in a clean victory, or maybe they're going to further extend the feud, but still, really great match. Just like kind of a bummer finish.
Yeah, I feel like that trope is kind of tired at this point because we just saw it twice in the last episode by the Dungeon of Doom.
Yeah.
And it's like, do you have another way to kind of, you know, prolong this feud that isn't just an interference?
Yeah, and it also seemed like an interference that had no motivation.
Yeah, where is Flying Brian in all of this?
And maybe that's something they're trying to establish, but to me it just wasn't great booking, like that whole thing. But still, great match. Don't want to take away from how good the match really was. Finally, we are ready for War Games, the match beyond. And we get 2 video packages in a row to hype this match up. The first one being Kevin Sullivan, the Taskmaster, the leader of the Dungeon of Doom, doing a solo promo package taunting Hulk Hogan, and it is one of the most bonkers things I've seen yet in WCW or WWF. I don't even know what to say. This was so wacky, and it went on for so long. Like, I've seen bits like this where a character might pull a one-liner out, but this just seemed like his, like, demo reel of insanity. Like a bootleg Joker sort of vibe.
You and I can't coexist on this planet. I
know I said the Mr. Wonderful package was really hilarious. This one was head and shoulders above that one.
Yeah. Really, really, really made me appreciate the Taskmaster character a lot more. I don't feel like this personality comes out entirely in any of the other things I've seen from him. Love it.
Me too.
The master himself will drive the wagons.
After that, we get another video package hyping up the match itself. The storyline is that the Dungeon of Doom is facing Hulk and his Hulkamaniacs in the ring. Vader was one of the Hulkamaniacs and has gone AWOL. They're really pushing the military theme tonight. And there's some really great shots of the guys like on a big tank and some other stuff. And it's good, but it's like, man, you give me the Taskmaster package. Don't follow it up with something much more boring and tame. But after that video package, they ramp up the intensity again as Hulk Hogan, Lex Luger, Randy Savage, and Sting are all together backstage with Mean Gene. And Mean Gene makes this really great reference to storming the beaches of Normandy.
Finally. As captain of the team, I've got to liken this to the invasion of Normandy in 1945.
This is the kind of backstage promo that I really, really, really love to see. It feels like an old school WWF promo. At one point, Hogan says,
And we just drank a couple gallons of Agent Orange, brother.
This was the type of skit where I was watching it, and I was just kind of like, just taking it in.
Yeah.
Because it was so high energy, and it was the most engaging thing I had seen all night.
Yeah.
And it was so entertaining. It took me a minute to really process everything that was going on. And I loved Jimmy Hart in the background, who very uncharacteristically didn't have any sunglasses on. He was just standing there quietly holding an American flag in the background.
His arms looked so limp and weak. It was so funny to me. I don't know. It seemed like he didn't want to like bash anyone with the flag, so he was trying to like wave it in a way that was patriotic and exciting, but not too much of a distraction.
Yeah, it was very weird to see him almost a little bit out of character because he just wasn't in a bunch of crazy garb. He only had on American flag pants and then like a ripped
Tank top sort of deal.
Yeah. It's very interesting to me.
It was also funny that everyone else is wearing the same tank top and camo pants, but Jimmy Hart's wearing his American flag pants, and I thought that was, I don't know, that was just a neat treat for me. He probably just didn't have any camo pants to wear, but Randy Savage, Hogan, and Sting have all been like pretty good on the mic in terms of giving exciting, amped up, aggressive promos. I think Luger has always been really weak on the mic, and when he finally does get to say something, he just trips over his words, which is really common for people to do. But when other guys like Hogan trip over their words, they just like plow through it. And I don't know, but Lex always feels like he's very aware of his own awkwardness. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's the bell tolls right now. It's time to turn it on, and we are together as together can be.
Still, he got the job done, and they head out to the ring for War Games, the match beyond. Before the match can occur, we have to go over the rules. Now, the rules, there's like 4 pages of rules. To break it down as simply as I can, each team picks a man to go into the cage. After that, every few minutes, there's a coin toss. Whoever wins the coin toss gets to pick another man to go into the cage. Once all 8 men are into the cage together, the match officially starts. At that point, if a single member from either team submits or surrenders, they lose the match for their whole team and the other team wins the War Games. There's a special stipulation tonight that if Hogan's team wins, he gets to go one-on-one with the Taskmaster, which is something he's been wanting to do because the Taskmaster has organized this Dungeon of Doom that has done nothing but torment the Hulkster. And we didn't really get a chance to talk about this, but Hulkster was given a really great motorcycle by the fans, and the Giant, who is a member of the Dungeon of Doom, runs it over with a monster truck in a really hilarious segment. And I just love seeing young Giant, young Big Show screaming his fucking head off and laughing in Hogan's face after destroying the motorcycle. I don't know. That's a wonderful bit.
It's a great bit. And then Hogan climbs up onto the truck and he's just like banging, and Giant is just laughing in his face from like this far away. It kind of looks like the monster truck, like you could just peel the siding of it off too. It's
goofy. In a recent interview with Stone Cold Steve Austin, Big Show mentioned that when he was younger, he didn't really understand the psychology of being a giant in the ring. And so he really relied on screaming in people's faces and yelling a lot. And as the Giant becomes the Big Show, you'll see less and less of that screaming, and his in-ring persona and his psychology will shift, and he'll become a lot more powerful and foreboding in a different way. But in these early matches, you're going to see him just screaming at people, and I do really get a kick out of that as well.
I feel like that's one of the few characters that can really pull off just screaming.
It is effective, for sure, but it only goes so far for so long. It's also worth noting that he's only 23 years old at this point, which is just so crazy to see him so young. I don't know.
It's so huge.
Yeah. It's awesome. Another weird thing about the Giant is that they are trying to evoke memories of Andre the Giant. Andre and Hogan had some famous matches in the past. Andre has defeated Hogan. Andre's one of the few people who have defeated Hogan. And so you get little clips like this.
Then all of a sudden I felt this aura, this presence. I felt Andre, man, right in my face. And
that was something that eventually the writers got away from, and I'm glad they did. I think it's kind of corny and disrespectful, and it's just pretty lame to retread the same thing over and over. But that's something that you'll see with Hogan throughout most of his career is, hey, how can we try to redo what worked in the 80s?
Yeah, and I believe at one point Bobby Heenan says, "Oh, I've seen this before."
Yeah, and that could be confusing if you weren't aware of his history with Andre the Giant. And you'll see it again. He brings the Warrior back. That's why he brought Randy Savage on. He brings Brutus. He brings Jimmy Hart with him when he goes to WCW. He's always trying to recapture that golden age, the rock and roll wrestling age, the WWF. And he never quite gets there. But eventually, you will see Hogan does change his strategy a little bit. But we're not quite there yet. I'm excited for Hogan to turn into a bad guy. That is probably the most exciting part of his later career. Anyway, let's get to the entrances. Everybody comes out to one really long song. Like everybody, both teams.
The Dungeon of Doom!
The song is just like a military march, so it's kind of like droning, and then they also have fireworks going off, kind of to simulate the sound of bombs.
Yeah.
Pretty disturbing in my opinion, but it is, you know, following the theme of the night.
Yeah, and you know, we had the AWOL Gulf War veteran come in for revenge. You know, we got the whole military thing going real strong, so why not just stick with it all the way? There's also a very strong pro-America theme throughout this match and in the entrances and stuff, and it feels like something they're just trying to like shove in there. It's not really part of the story. It's not like the Dungeon of Doom is anti-America, but the Hulkamaniacs are representing America and are very pro-American. It's funny to think about that on a deeper level with the Americans, the Hulkamaniacs on one side and the Dungeon of Doom on the other. The Dungeon of Doom has more non-white characters, there's more ethnicity, there's more culture, there's more Satanism and witchcraft, and it's just funny to think about the all-white pro-American team and then the others on the other side. It's just like I don't think that's really where they're going with it, but it is like, what else are you implying when it's like, hey, we're pro-America and you guys over there with Kamala, the Ugandan giant, and Meng and all you other Satanist freaks are un-American.
Yeah, I feel like there's no real basis for it, other than the fact that it's Hulk Hogan, who's like an American hero, and then Lex Luger, who's just this other American hero, and they're together, and Randy Savage, and it just makes, or it brings me back to when Luger was in WWF fighting against Yokozuna.
Yeah,
And that was a huge aspect of their, it's like the only aspect of their rivalry.
Yeah, very xenophobic, anti-Japanese sentiment, even though I believe Yokozuna's Hawaiian.
Yeah.
In real life. Anyway.
So, just very reminiscent of that for me.
Yeah. We do see, again, less and less of that over time, although even up until a few years ago, there has been some very spicy takes on ethnicity, race, and America, and how that all plays into who you're going to root for in wrestling. And I would say that's, again, one of the more darker and problematic aspects of the sport.
So we have the fireworks, and the Hulkamaniacs come out, and everybody is going nuts for them. Dungeon of Doom comes out, nobody cares.
They don't even get as many boos as Brian Pillman got.
No.
I don't know if there was an audio issue. It does seem like they get no reaction at all.
I don't think so. I think it was genuine disinterest.
That sucks. But also, I mean, as a viewer, Dungeon of Doom is so stupid and tired. I can't say that I would have been excited to see them. I'd be excited to see Sting and Hogan and everybody, but
yeah,
Dungeon of Doom,
it's not hot.
It's not hot!
I guess we can finally talk about the match itself. First into the ring are the Shark and Sting, and they go at it pretty hard. At one point, Sting is biting the face of the Shark. Should also note that the rings are much closer together this time. There is not a giant gap in between them that someone could fall into. I really have to think that somebody at some point must have gotten their ankle twisted on one of those things. That just seems like so dangerous. There's been other times where the rings have been fixed in such a way, you know, there's a hole cut in the ring or something and someone's gotten injured. It just doesn't seem safe to have the rings be a possible obstacle for the workers, you know?
Yeah.
So I'm glad they finally put those together. And I am wondering, though, if there is some account somewhere of someone being like, hey, man, we got to fix that. Like, there's like a 1 foot gap in between these rings that in the heat of the moment, somebody could miss their step and just end it. The first coin toss goes to the Dungeon of Doom, and they send in Zodiac Man.
Zodiac Man.
Sting is taking on both the Shark and Zodiac, and he's doing all right for a while. He's effectively using the cage, and that's something I always get a kick out of seeing, is old school cage wrestling, where they're just either grating guys' faces or bouncing people off of it. I don't know. Sting's also holding on to the top of the cage and delivering some really nice, like, flying kicks. At one point, the Shark is laid out across the ropes, and Sting is just beating him, and he just looks like he's like, you know, like a shark or some kind of sea creature that got beached and is just being pummeled by angry beachgoers.
Yeah, that's a pretty good comparison.
Next up, Randy Savage enters the ring, and at this point, the Dungeon of Doom is reaching under the cage and pulling on Sting and kind of giving the Doom guys an advantage, so it's not a full 2-on-2, it's a 2-on-1 for a short time. The next coin toss brings Kamala into the mix, and so Dungeon of Doom is 3-2. They got a one-man advantage over the Hulkamaniacs at this point. But after the next coin toss, we finally bring in Mr. Lex Luger, and I think Hogan calls him Lex or something. Do you remember that?
No.
I really feel like I heard him call him like Lexi, or I could be making that up.
Lex! Flex!
In the pre-match interview, they allude to some friction between Luger and Savage, and you even saw that on Nitro the week before, how Luger was kind of putting Savage in a sort of uneasy state of mind, and Savage really didn't trust him. And there's a great moment where they're like, "Are you sure you guys are okay now?" And Savage just goes, "Sting said we need a say to set me straight, and we're a real team now, man." And I don't know, I was like, oh, they're going to have problems. And, of course, Luger inadvertently, Heenan is really selling the idea that Lex did it on purpose, but Lex does strike Randy Savage, and Savage and Luger start going at it, which puts the Hulkamaniacs in this sort of like, oh no, are they going to, you know, fall to the Dungeon of Doom because they can't get along? Well, that clears up pretty quickly and actually goes nowhere.
It was like a 5-second fight.
Yeah.
That I really thought was going to derail the whole thing. No, it just ended.
Yeah, didn't go anywhere. I also want to mention, it is still so crazy to me that Kamala wrestles barefoot. It seems so dangerous.
Yeah, it seems like you could definitely get your toes stomped.
Totally.
Or caught even in the gap that has shrunk. When you're barefoot, your feet are much smaller.
Yeah, and he's not like a guy who's extremely athletic or acrobatic in his style. You know, he's kind of just like a lumbering kind of brawler, but still, I've seen guys wrestle barefoot with their feet taped sometimes. The full-on barefoot wrestling from Kamala has always disturbed me. I just imagine a big wrestling boot coming down and smashing your little toes wide open. They went and saved the best for last with Hogan coming in at the final period, and he is immediately fighting dirty against the Dungeon of Doom and starts blasting them with pocket sand.
Pocket sand.
We're kind of glossing over the match here, but it's not a match you can really call a lot of specific spots for. Matches like this, where there's more than 4 guys in the ring, especially, can be difficult to call because there's so much simultaneous action. I think the real appeal of a match like this is seeing that many guys in the ring at once. It's stimulating. Like there's, always something to look at. There's always some action going on. But you'll notice that even in the ring, the guys will kind of like walk over to the side and take a break for a minute or two every now and then. And kind of like, they're not always in the middle of the action. So it's hard to really highlight too much from this match, but I think it is worth watching. Like, it is an exciting match, but it's just not exciting in the same way as Arn Anderson versus Ric Flair, where there's like a lot of specific moments I can point to where I was like, man, that really got me going. Whereas with this, it's just like more of a big cock. It's more of a big cacophonous spectacle.
Yeah, and another thing about that many guys in the ring is that there's usually some sort of distraction for the ref. Some guy in the corner that the ref can't see is doing something dirty, and it just kind of repeats with whoever is not being tracked by the ref.
Totally. Something you don't see too often, Hulk Hogan gets a submission hold on the Zodiac, and the Zodiac submits. And War Games is essentially over. This means that the Taskmaster has to go one-on-one with Hulk Hogan in the cage, and he tries to escape. He gets dragged into the ring. He escapes a few times, actually, throughout the encounter.
Yeah, he has kind of like a security leading him to the ring, and once he gets to the end of the runway, Sting grabs him, and he just takes him and shoves him right in there.
Yeah. He pops out of the cage a few times, gets shoved back in. Hogan is just kicking his butt, just tossing around, and they're acting like Kevin Sullivan is a guy who can't wrestle at all, but he's wrestled a lot. Like I feel like Kevin could have, on paper, Kevin could have put up a little bit more of a fight, but Hulk Hogan just brutalizes him. However, before too long, the Giant comes in, interferes, and pretty much looks like he snaps Hogan's neck.
Yeah.
It's implied that that's what's happening.
Does a little one of these. Hogan collapses. He's on the canvas, and he's kind of like on his side.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody comes up to him, trying to roll him over.
Like we know it before, the Giant is screaming the whole time he's doing this.
This is another instance where somebody has snuck up on the other.
Yeah. Again, I really like run-ins. I really like interferences and sneak entrances, but they have to be used sparingly.
And they are definitely not using any of this stuff sparingly. It's just all kind of one right after another, and is getting tired.
Yeah, and you'll see even more of that as time goes on. There will be shows where it seems like the NWO comes in and interferes in every single match of the card, and you just never get a clean finish. And I don't know if that's the writers thinking that traditional wrestling has become boring, but god damn, sometimes I just want to see a guy win a match, Winning and losing is what creates tension and drama and increases the stakes, because you want to see that person, get their win back in some way. You want, if there's someone that you're rooting for, or if it's someone that you're against, you like seeing them lose. You like seeing them get their comeuppance. And then when everything ends in some sort of disqualification or interference or some sort of dirty finish, it just feels like you don't really get the full completion of the cycle. Does that make sense?
I feel like the sports side of it is lost a lot of the time once that starts happening.
Yeah, and again, I love the entertainment end of things. It's great, but give me a damn match. With Hogan in a lifeless heap in the middle of the ring, we find ourselves at the end of Fall Brawl 1995. Overall, not a great pay-per-view. I would say definitely watch Arn Anderson and Ric Flair. I don't know if I can make a strong recommendation for anything else on the card. Did you have anything that stood out to you as being something to definitely see? I mean, aside from the Gary Spivey spot?
I would say there's no particular matches worth highlighting. Just all the skits in this are really great. All
Yeah.
the promos, packages. But any other match, not really.
So you think Arn and Flair kind of take the night?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, hey, I mean, they're two old timers that it's crazy that they keep wrestling for so long after this, but they do a good job. It's a great match. The rest of the show, I could take it or leave it. It did progress the storylines. War Games is always exciting, if difficult to talk about. And next up, we'll be reviewing the Monday, September 18th, 1995. In the meantime, if you want to support the show, check us out on Patreon. There's a link down there. Be sure to like and comment and subscribe and do all those nice things that help the channel grow and become the wrestling powerhouse that you know it needs to be.
Hogan! 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 Do you realize you're going into the most dangerous match of all time? War Games. 2 steel cages. The Dungeon of Doom against the Hulkamaniacs. I told you life would not be easy. You're the one that created me. You and I can't coexist on this planet. I can feel you again. You locked in with Dungeon of Doom. The Shark, Kamala, Zodiac, Ming. All 8 of us at the same time. The scarf on your head will start to smoke and boil. Soon, your hearing will go. The Master himself will drive the wagon with all the Hulkamaniac carcasses laying on it.
The Dungeon of Doom brought you these posies, but they expired. We love you not. Actually,
We hate you guts. And we hate you!
you know what's gonna happen? The immortal Hulk Hogan?
You're gonna get buried!
You're gonna get buried.
My heart goes out to you!
Next into the ring after the toin toss.
Toinkos.
First toin. What the hell?
I'm sorry, it sounds like twink ass.
It sounds like twink ass.